Yo, what's up, beautiful world? It's your boy Manny coming to you from the Manny Jae Media headquarters, and I'm with one of my really close friends from the community who I love so much, Miss Julie of CASA Project. I didn't say program. I got it. I'm so proud of myself, so I'm gonna pat myself on the back right now. But welcome to the show, Julie. How are you?
Thank you.
What do you think about our new digs?
This is a cool space.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
You know, the people behind the scenes working very hard for us.
Keeping you in line.
Yeah. They put me in check because it's very easy for me to, I'm like a balloon. I'll just fly off anywhere. So I got my rocks back there holding me down, grounding me, and I love them and I appreciate them. And thank you so much, John and Leanne. We appreciate you. But CASA, one of my favorite programs. I think it's very vital to the community. I think it's very important. I think that our children have a hard enough time when they're ever put in a situation where they have to be involved in court. And most of the time, well, let's be real, none of us asked to be here, right?
It's true.
So to end up in the court system is an even more tragic fate, right? Because you didn't ask to be here, and then, of course, you didn't ask to be taken away from your family or have any of those legal issues and then have to be in front of a judge and basically defend yourself. So that's where the CASA program comes in.
Well, yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and all of those advocates are volunteers. So that's really important. I am the executive director, yes, and I have a really, really valuable team that are on staff, but our volunteers are really, like the heart and soul of our organization because we couldn't do anything without them.
Yeah.
We have well over 200 trained, screened, and active volunteers who are the actual court-appointed special advocates, CASA. So that's where the name comes from. And so that's what we do. We provide advocacy for, like you were saying, youth that are in care and protection cases and other situations in the juvenile court and through the child welfare system. So like you say, they're very vulnerable. None of what's happening in their lives or their families is any fault of their own, of course. Yeah. There's a lot of systemic things that we may or may not get into today that impact these families and these children. But the main point is none of it is the children's fault. And so being able to provide some support, some advocacy for them as they navigate that process, some consistency, a trusted adult, that will sort of like follow them through, what can be obviously very traumatic time in their lives, is really what our goals, that's really our only goal. And to just try to alleviate some of the stress and the trauma that, will occur through that process. So we feel really strongly that our work is vital, like you said. We serve the whole of Worcester County, so it's really large geographic area relative to our state. And so that's 60 towns and cities all the way to New Hampshire border, down the Rhode Island border, and everything in between. So
that's a lot of space.
It's a lot of space, a lot of towns.
In your head, it doesn't maybe seem like a lot of space, but it's literally from the New Hampshire border to Rhode Island border and the whole center of Massachusetts.
Yeah, and as all of us know, and probably likely a lot of your listeners, but with Worcester, the city of Worcester being the second largest city in all of New England, that alone is obviously a dense city, a very, very active court, a lot of kids, a lot of families that need support. And then we have 4 other courts outside of Worcester that are also in the county that we also cover cases in. So, again, all over Worcester County. So we've been around for 42 years now. We were the first program in Massachusetts and actually one of the first 9 in the whole country.
Wow.
CASA is a national organization. So the Worcester County program was one of the first 9 pilot programs nationally. So we're still the oldest and still the largest here in the state. And like you say, everyone thinks like, oh, Massachusetts, so small. But there's still a lot of people where it's a dense area and there's a lot of families and kids. So yeah.
It definitely has a dense population. And, if we're comparing it to other states, they have a lot more space too. It's not necessarily
empty
the population,
space.
Right? Like Texas is a huge state, but they also have like miles and miles worth of ranches, where there's like one family on that plot of land. But I wanted to say, I really think it's awesome, and something that should always be highlighted, the volunteer aspect of the program, which is like the meat and potatoes of the program, right? And it really speaks to the neutrality. And, it's important that there is a third party person that can really speak for the child and
Yes.
only for the child, and not have any real stake in the family's issues or any stake in, the court side. I don't know how.
No, but actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Well, actually, it's a good point, though, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's so true that we're the only like stakeholder, if you will, in the situation that's unfolding, right, for these kids and families that does not have like a horse in the race, if you will, or like any type of pressure on us to make any particular recommendation or, of course, parents have attorneys, children have attorneys. They have a job to do. Their job is very important, but they have a client.
Right.
For us, you're right, we're the only like truly neutral party that's able to say what's actually in the best interest of the child, not like what do we want, what do they want, what does this party want.
And there's no monetary motivation.
Correct.
It's literally just the best interest of the child, or at least I would hope.
That's exactly what it is. That's literally in our mission is just best interest advocacy. So knowing that sometimes that might not make everybody in the room happy, or it might not be in alignment with what, some folks are, saying that they might hope for an outcome or whatnot, while we take into consideration all of those voices and perspectives as part of the process, and we interview everyone that we can possibly have a touch point with in the child's life, anyone from an educator, of course, family members, caregivers, those kinds of folks, but also extending to other people that might be in their lives, to try to just gather facts and information. That's it. Not opinions, not what do they want. Like we're completely, like you said, the neutrality of it and being able to say like, we have heard everyone's perspective, experience, and then really it's just our job to amplify what we believe to be the facts, best interest, permanent, safe, long-term outcome for that child or children, if it's siblings many times, and nothing but that. And so it's a very important role because it has such a huge impact, right? Like there's so much behind what we're reporting to the court and what we're recommending. And when you think about a child's, like it impacts the rest of their life,
right?
And the court agrees with our recommendation about 86% of the time. So that kind of speaks to, I think, like the relationships that we've established there, but also the reputation of consistent fact-based reporting and not inserting everyone's going to have an opinion.
Right. I mean, it's human nature, right? You're still going to have your
it's
own
an emotional
feelings.
Situation.
It's very emotional. I could imagine. I mean, most kids that are in court aren't there for happy reasons, right?
That's so true. Like, I would say like court in general, right? It's not like where most of us like hope to find ourselves for one reason or another.
Unless you're a lawyer or a judge.
Unless you're a lawyer or a judge.
Right.
And we love them too.
Yes.
Our juvenile judges are really pretty phenomenal. We have a new first justice in the juvenile courts in Worcester County. Yes, Judge Mary Beth Keating. And she's been a judge that we've worked with for many years. But she's just as of, January of this year. Judge Carol Erskine was the former first justice for the juvenile courts, and she retired. So congratulations to her.
Congratulations on your retirement, Judge Carol Erskine. That's awesome.
Yep. Yes, well deserved. Yeah. But we're really excited to work with Judge Keating in this role too, and she's been this really tremendous advocate for our work. And we've had such a wonderful relationship with her and her colleagues. So we're excited to sort of take that connection there to the next level in the coming months to be able to help more kids,
Yeah, and what a great thing to be establishing and nurturing that relationship with the courts so that there is legitimacy in the CASA project. So, that there is more consideration of what your findings are, mainly because you are amplifying the voice of that child. And one of the questions I had based on that is, why can't a child just represent or advocate for themselves in court?
So I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, in some cases, it's the obvious answer, which is they're either too young or developmentally, just not in a place where that would make sense or it could be more traumatic or whatever it might be. So there's that sort of like age and maturity factor. Level, right. But then, you like to your point, you could look at school age kids or teenagers or what have you, and you might think, well, let's ask them what they want. Well, we do. That's our biggest really assignment, if you will, is to spend time with the child and hear from them personally what they're experiencing and what they're sort of like hoping for. That being said, the unfortunate reality is that you can't expect a child or even a teenager to necessarily know what's actually safe or best for them.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to include what their preferences are, what they're expressing. But it is true, unfortunately, that some kids, they're that are able to be objective, right? Nor probably could we if we were in their shoes.
Right. And we can't blanket expectations across all kids. And when we're talking about kids, we're talking about a wide age range, literally from birth up to what,
17 years old.
17, 18? Okay.
Yep.
So
it's true.
The CASA project offered to every child? How does that work? Do I need to know about this? Because if I'm a parent, I might not even want my kid to be involved with the CASA project, so I'm protecting my own interests, right? Just hypothetically.
Well, so you would never be involved with the CASA project unless, like you said, there was an open case in the juvenile courts and the child is going through the child welfare system in our state. So, so there's already right there, that would be the only time we would be involved. We can't elect, we don't get to say, we want to help, here, there, and whatever. It's entirely up to the courts, the judge that's assigned to the case, to assign a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate. So a lot of people are familiar with guardian ad litem, a GAL. So it's essentially the same role. It's synonymous. The difference being, you touched on it earlier, it's unpaid. Yes, it's unpaid. Yep. Unpaid. We're not attorneys.
Well,
we're
guardian ad litem, I always thought that was someone that was appointed not necessarily by the court, a family member, my aunt could be my guardian ad litem.
So there can be, that's true that they're signed the same way through the courts, right? It's basically synonymous. The difference really is just that our CASAs are volunteers, where GALs can be a paid or a stipend role.
Really?
Yeah. So, but it is really the same in especially
that might be
in terms
another
of
source of income to consider. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Side gig.
Yeah, a little side gig. Yeah.
But
we need 7 streams of income.
Well, but they're attorneys. So that's the main difference,
okay.
right?
Is that
difference. We're not, our volunteers can be from any walk of life, any background. Some are, retirees, some are educators, some are parents, some are certainly could be an attorney, but it's absolutely not an expectation or requirement at all. So that's the main difference. So, but folks who are familiar with a guardian ad litem role, that might give them a little bit more context into what this is. But these are, we have well over 200 trained. We do all the background checks, the screening, the training. There's over 30 hours of training just initially after you apply, after you do background checks, after we do an interview. There's 30 hours of dedicated training before you even sort of take on this role or get assigned to a case. But you asked earlier, how could you get someone assigned a CASA? And really, it's just up to the courts to make that recommendation or that judgment. So we're assigned to about 22% of the open care and protection cases currently in Worcester County courts. So just to give you a perspective,
that
so there's
doesn't sound like a lot.
It doesn't sound like enough, right?
Right.
And I would probably argue the same thing. So that's
if I was a judge, and I'm not, and maybe this is why I'm not, I would definitely want to assign every child that comes into my court an advocate.
And I think the argument can be made that while maybe some cases are a little less nuanced or maybe a little more straightforward, maybe don't need as much of the advocacy or support or sort of an extra eyes and ears like we provide, there's definitely more than 22% that could use it. So I would say that there's a significant number of cases, kids and families who could use our advocacy and our services that maybe aren't currently accessing it. So that's part of what we were talking about, our relationship with the court. Sometimes a foster parent or a caregiver or family member will say to their child's attorney or to their attorney, we would like it. Could you possibly help facilitate getting a CASA assigned to this case? A lot of times the attorneys actually will say, I feel like we need a neutral, objective voice here. We'll ask the judge, could you assign a CASA? And we appreciate when that does happen.
I wonder if why there would ever be a reason they would say no, right? It actually seems like a benefit to the case.
Yeah, I think that is generally the reaction, I don't know that it's ever rejected necessarily. I think maybe it's just a matter of at the onset of the case, whether or not, sometimes you don't have the whole picture. So sometimes a case you'll say, read a file and say, I think we have a pretty clear picture here. Sometimes as time goes on, you realize, whoa, maybe we don't have a total picture, or maybe we do need a little more objectivity or another person out there speaking to the important folks in the child's life and to the child. Most importantly, in visiting, our volunteers visit with a new child in their case at least once every 30 days. Yeah. Like at an absolute minimum. If it's siblings and they're placed in separate places, sometimes they're placed outside of the county. So like it really is a very involved role. So our volunteers, when I say like all volunteers are angels, I believe, but our volunteers are like a whole other level of angels, in my opinion. And of course, I'm biased, but these are people who are giving many hours, like many hours. And we ask them to commit a year minimum or to stay with a case until it closes. Sometimes cases last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Wow. So we would like that consistency of our volunteer, our CASA, to be able to stay with the child or children for the duration. So we're not asking like a lot of volunteers, like I volunteer at places and I can kind of pick and choose, oh, I'm free this weekend or I have a few extra hours here and there. And I love doing that. But that's very flexible. I didn't have to go through like intensive training, what have you. So this is like a very significant volunteer role. And the fact that in our county, we have well over 200 people who are doing this just for our program alone. That doesn't count other areas of the state or the country. That's so significant. Yeah. And we are starting another new volunteer training actually later this month on the 21st. Yes. Oh. Yeah. So we have a
if you
huge
want to get
crew.
Involved, now's your chance.
Well, you have to move fast if you're going to get into this one. However, we do them.
We got 2 weeks.
Yeah,
right?
we do them at least 3 times a year. It's an involved application, and then we do the background checks, the screening, and the interviews.
Does that all have to be done before the 21st? Yeah, that's kind of a short window.
But you can go to our website. You can learn about it, certainly. And
what's that website?
The CASAproject.org. So CASA. Yep.
Nice.
Yep, and we'll say it a few more times too, so in case you don't have a chance to write it down.
That's right, the CASAproject.org, and we're actually going to put it in the description of the video. Maybe we'll even put it on the bottom of the video. We're working with some things. We're trying to overlay some things and, get a little bit better and have better quality each show. And I
love
mean,
it.
So far, we're doing all right.
So.
But we actually are going to be taking a quick little breather so we can get a little sippy on water, folks, or tea. Just wet our whistle and collect our thoughts, and then we'll come right back and we'll talk more about this amazing program and all the amazing things that you have going on this month. After all, it is March, and we're going to talk more about that in just a second. But quickly, in case you didn't see this little guy right here, we're going to talk about him when I come back, too. Have you been wondering about why he's here? We're going to talk about
I thought we were just on theme.
Nah, he's actually a special, integral part of Manny Jae Media.
Right, I'm intrigued.
We'll talk about that more on the other side. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be right back.